Hello and welcome to this webinar sponsored by the BYU Management Society. I'm Rixa Oman, Executive Director of the Society, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. I'm so glad that you could join us. We're so pleased to have Sarah Davis to present on Women Are Natural Entrepreneurs. A few housekeeping items to remind you of. The audio portion of the presentation can be heard through the speakers on your computer, or if you want to, you can even call in on your phone, and that information will be on the little panel on the right of your screen. During the presentation, all presenters or all attendees will be muted. That's so you can hear us, but we can't hear you. And this is in order to deliver a clear presentation for everyone. Many of you asked questions on the survey. As we usually do, we have reviewed these carefully, and Sarah and I have looked at them, and they're very helpful in focusing the presentation. Thank you for sharing your questions. We can't address each one of them naturally, but we can look at your thoughts, and that's helped us to direct the presentation today. We also invite you to write any comments on the little chat area of your GoToWebinar control panel if you have questions during the presentation. Now let me introduce Sarah. Sarah Davis is the founder and chief creative officer of Fashionphile. Entrepreneur magazine called Fashionphile one of the 100 smartest, most innovative, hands-down brilliant companies on our radar. Sarah was also named one of Forbes magazine's 10 female entrepreneurs to watch. She graduated from, sorry, I lost my place, from BYU and served a mission in Minnesota. She has a law degree from the University of Maryland School of Law. Sarah was a member of the BYU Management Society in San Francisco and then in San Diego, and I met her here when she was introduced to me. She now lives in Biloxi, Mississippi, and still running for her company, which is based in San Diego, and she'll tell you a lot more about that today. She met her husband Steve at BYU, and they have 4 children. Her oldest daughter is now serving a mission in Panama. And with that, let me take just a second here, and I have to do a little bit of sharing, and we'll change presenters. And Sarah, let's see, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Am I good?
Yes, but you need to share your screen.
Okay, hold on. Oops, it says it's sharing, but apparently it's not sharing. Sorry, technical difficulties already. Hold on, let me see something. I'm gonna share my screen before I make it big, because then everything goes away.
All right, there you go.
Okay, so hopefully now it's gonna.
Now set it on your. Yeah, there you go. We're ready to go. Thank you.
So yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. I kind of feel like I'm talking to myself, but you know, I do that, so that's fine. And I really appreciated all of your questions, and I hope that I've tried to incorporate some of those into my thoughts today. But really my topic is just based on my life experience talking to women, and especially women in the church. There's so many women doing so many different, unique, interesting things. And the more that I thought about it, it just seems to me that there's lots of traits that we have, and especially traits that are fostered in the church, that I just see that women are natural entrepreneurs. And so I'm just going to go through several reasons why I think this is so, and how the church kind of aids in this in particular. The first thing is we are industrious. And my mom used to call me this when I was little, and when I was young, I didn't really even know what it meant exactly, but I thought that it meant that I worked hard, and that I was a little bit clever, and I really liked hearing it. And so some examples of this is when I was in high school, I started a company called Lice Spice. This is a company where moms would pay me $10 a head to take the lice out of their kids' heads. So we lived in Houston, Texas, and there was lots of opportunity. There's money to be made, let's put it that way. Although I was really undervaluing my services, because apparently there's a company called Lice Fairies in LA right now that charges $175 a head. But still, so I did this when I was in high school. When I went to BYU, I also needed to make money. And I went to Shopco, and I bought a pair of hair clippers, and I started cutting hair in the boys' dorm lobby for $5 a haircut. I had no training, but I needed to make money, and I wanted to get to know the boys, so that was like win-win at that point. So my mom called me industrious, but looking back, what she was saying was that I was entrepreneurial. But I think that this trait is something that we as women are raised with, especially in the church, and that the church helps to foster this. Have you heard this before? Quote, if you see a need, fill it. This is something that I have heard since I was just a little girl at home and young women and Relief Society. But developing that particular skill and sensitivity of seeing a need and recognizing, identifying what to do about it is actually really helpful for an entrepreneur. And women are really good at this. So an example, I don't know if you know this woman, this is Sarah Blakely. She's just the first thing that came to my mind. She was going door to door selling fax machines back in the day when that was a thing. But to do this, she had to dress professionally, and so for her that meant she had to wear pantyhose, which she hadn't done before. And so she realized really quickly that she actually liked what the control top part of the pantyhose were doing for her in her clothes. They made everything so much smoother. She really liked that things fit so much better. And she'd had a pair of cream pants that were hanging in her closet she had bought like forever ago, had never been able to wear. They were expensive, but you could see her panty lines. And so she'd never worn them. So she took these pantyhose and she cut the feet off of them and off those control top pantyhose, and she was able to wear these cream slacks. And from there she developed Spanx. So Spanx now sells over $400 million annually. Sarah wasn't discouraged by the fact that she had no idea what she was doing when she started out. In fact, she said, and I've got the quote here, "Don't be intimidated by what you do not know. That can be your greatest strength and can ensure that you do things different from everyone else." And I really like that. Sarah is still 100% owner of her company, making her the youngest self-made billionaire in the world. She saw a need and she filled it. Not that we all want to be billionaires, but I mean, just a really great example of just seeing something that worked for her and sharing that with other people, making it work. But this is something that women do. I think that's one of the reasons why women-run startups are so successful. You can think of needs that are met in the founding of all of these wildly successful female-founded companies. So 23andMe, think about the needs that are being met in these. Angie's List, I need someone to do this job for me. You go to Angie's List. Birchbox, what does that do? Drybar, Etsy, The Honest Company, House, Nasty Gal, Net-a-Porter, One Kings Lane, The Real Real, Rent the Runway, SoulCycle, Spanx, Stella & Dot, Tory Burch, Tradesy. And in Utah and in the LDS community, just a little closer to home, some of these brands might also seem familiar. Barefoot Blonde Hair, had to put that in, that's my sister-in-law, so plug. But Freshly Picked, Lime Ricky, Nana & Company, Raising Wild, Shabby Apple, Stampin' Up, Sweet Tooth Fairy. You know, just seeing a need and then doing something about it. You know, you want a swimsuit that you can wear, that you feel comfortable with, and can be energetic and free and modest. And these people see this need, you create something and share it. There's lots of, you know, you can see this all around you, and there's other women doing things that doesn't necessarily have to be a job, but other things done by industrious women. You think about Sister Beehive and Sister Laurel from Sisters in Zion. What was the need there? You know, what are they doing? What are they contributing? That what need is being filled by the work that they're doing? Amy Antonelli, I don't know if you know her, some of her work with the lepers in India. Amazing work, the organization she's done. She saw a huge need and she's filled it. Mia Love, I mean, think about where these women were when they saw work that needed to be done and stepped up to do that work. Which leads me to number 2, we know how to work. And this is something I'm convinced is actually in our DNA, especially as Mormon women. We get things done. We always have. you know, as I pioneer great grandmothers, their faces were tan and their hands were rough at a time when it was fashionable to be pale and soft. When our great 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 grandfathers were off serving 7-year missions overseas, who was home with the 6 living children and a farm to run? They didn't have the luxury of not working, but they worked alongside and often enlisted help of those children right along with them. You know, this is just a legacy of work that we've been given. So these 2 beautiful people are my parents. That's me. And even though they may look like hippies in that picture, I was raised in a very traditional, very Mormon household. My parents just finished serving their 2nd mission. They were in Costa Rica and they just got back from Argentina. And they raised me and my siblings as put your shoulder to the wheel types, planners, goal setters, and the church was a big part of that. From the time I was a very young person, as young as I can remember, they asked me what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do with my life, and then they encouraged me and had total faith that I'd be able to accomplish those goals. And, you know, I always wanted to be a lawyer. I'd always, like, as for my debate nerd days, I'd always wanted to do that. And they supported that idea. My parents, when I was in high school, they let me take the public bus alone, this is back in Houston, to a sketchy area of downtown Houston to watch criminal court proceedings when I was in high school. And I loved that. But for whatever reason, in my life, I had these goals, I had these dreams, and I wanted to serve a mission. I always did. And I wanted to have a career, and I wanted to have a family. And for whatever reason, I never really stressed about how's that all going to work out. I probably should have. That's probably naive of me, but I never stressed out about it. I just felt like in my heart that Heavenly Father had a grand plan for me that included all these things. And so I graduated from BYU. I served a full-time mission, and I went to BYU, and like Rick said, mentioned, at BYU I met the love of my life, my husband. We met freshman year in the dorms. This is a picture of us the night before we got married. He made the cake. I, like, fondant, whatever. We were too poor to buy a cake, and it looked okay. It wasn't great, but lots of good memories. But a little, like, a trivial aside, that little sentence about meeting my husband, but that insignificant detail is actually really, really important. And there, I heard a quote from Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook. She wrote the book Lean In, and one of the things she said is, she said, quote, "I tell young girls the most important career choice you'll make is who you marry," close quote. And I want to tweak that to say the most important choice you'll make in this life is who you marry, because the plans for yourself and for your family, but if your husband doesn't share in those priorities, goals, and dreams, they're not going to happen, or it's going to be very difficult. And so, you know, life is just much less likely to become a reality no matter how hard you work if you don't have a good partner in it. You know, I'd always wanted to go to law school, like I said, and so I went to law school. I started. My daughter, Izzy, was 4 months old when I started, and my daughter, Ari, because I'm a planner, I planned to have her, like, in the summer, so she was due, like, the beginning of summer, but she ended up coming in a couple weeks early and was born, like, right in the middle of finals week, so I had con law on Monday, family law on Friday, and she was born on Wednesday. And it actually worked out great, because for those of you who had babies, you know I've got a 2-year-old at home at this point. Grandma's with her. And so I'm in a hospital room with, like, people doting on me, people making me food. It's all clean and sterile and helping with the baby. And I'm like, I just put my law books out and studied, and it was like the perfect setting. My teachers told me I could have a couple months to you know, gave me a break and I could take it later. But I was like, I need to knock it out right now. Anyway, and so it just all worked out. But there's my little graduation picture. But so this is just, you know, I think part of it is, you know, none of this was perfect as I went along the way. It's just that I set these goals and then, you know, worked towards that goal. And like I said, you have to have a partner who's able to work with you, and you know, to do that. But I always, growing up, I always like found a way to make a buck. Like that's kind of like the industrious part of me. And so when I was in law school, I found it really frustrating that my husband and I, he was in school as well, and we had so much money going out and not very much money going in. So I started selling on eBay. This is in 1999. So you guys, some of you were not born yet. Some of you know what I'm talking about when I say that this is back in the time when, like, you know, there's no PayPal, there's no Venmo, so people are like mailing me checks, and I'm like depositing the check and waiting for it to clear before I like send the stuff. There's no online payment system. So I started selling my own things on eBay, and I was super shocked by how well stuff like my old Gap overalls were selling for, or my Doc Martens Mary Jane shoes that I'd worn my entire mission. I sold them for like $35, and I was shocked that anybody wanted those. I just started selling everything. I loved eBay, and what I saw right off the bat was just that things with a designer label were keeping their value better than things, obviously, that didn't. And so before long, a couple of years, I realized that purses are really easy to sell. Women like purses. They keep their value better. They're one size fits all. You try to sell a pair of pants to somebody, and it's like, you know, it fits this woman as a size 4, but they're marked a size 6, or you said the inseam was 28 inches and it's really 30 inches. It was difficult to sell. But women's handbags, women love handbags, and so they're, you know, like I said, they're easy to ship. They don't break. They're easy to describe, and so I started to sell purses. And the thing that made selling purses jump out at me, what made it so fascinating, especially designer purses, is the way that they keep their value. And so I'm going to show you a little diagram to see why this works. So this is a Chanel jumbo flap. You've seen this bag before. It's an iconic style. They've done it forever. They still do it today. This bag looks exactly the same today, down to the stitch count and the hardware and the chain, whatever. It's all exactly identical. This is 2006. This bag sold for $17,995. $1,700, excuse me, $95. The way that Chanel works, they don't discount. You don't get this bag on a clearance sale. There's no outlet for Chanel flat bags. There's no discounting. There's nothing like that. And so you take this purse, and so they sold this in 2006 for $17.95. They don't discount. Instead, in 2008, they raised the price. So the same bag today is selling for $2,650, sorry, in 2008. Again, no discounting. Unless you work for Chanel, you're not going to get a discount on this bag. And so it continues to go on like this. In 2010, the price jumped up to $3,500. 2012, it went to $4,900. 2014, it went to $5,500. And we are looking, actually right now, this is like all over the purse news, which you guys probably, you know, aren't like following the purse news, but like there's supposed to be a price increase on Chanel November 15th. So you know, tomorrow? Yeah, so keep your eyes open to see what the price of this bag is. But what makes this interesting is that, say, Rixa in 2006 bought a Chanel jumbo flat for $1,795. And she carried that bag. She wore it around, kept it in nice shape. It comes with a little dust bag to help you protect it. And so she keeps that stored in the closet and wears it here and there. And then say today she's like, you know what, I've got this bag and it's got the silver hardware, but I'm more of a gold hardware person now. I want to sell that and get the gold version. She could sell this bag that she bought in 2006 for $1,795. She could probably sell it for $5,000 used. That's what they call these investment bags. That bag actually went up in value over years. So you can see how this was like very enticing as someone who's like going, the longer, as I'm selling used items, as the price increases on some of these brands that I'm selling, the resale price is increasing. And so it just makes it very interesting. So long story short, I started a business buying and selling used luxury purses. And I got them wherever I could find them. In the beginning, I bought lots of them on eBay. I bought them at consignment shops. I bought them from places like Neiman Marcus Last Call, or Saks Fifth Avenue has a place called Off Fifth. And when I sold these bags, I would stick a note in the box, and it said, you know, thank you so much for buying this beautiful bag from me. I would love to buy it back from you when you're done. And by the way, if you have anything else in your closet, I'd love to sell that for you. look in the back of this nice letter and you'll see a consignment form. If you could fill it out and stick it in a box with your bags, I'll sell those bags for you. And so that's how I started my business. And so today, oh, sorry, this is kind of a chart of the sales of the Chanel. It's gone up over time. So today, this is our store in Beverly Hills. We have a store that's like Rodeo Drive in Wilshire, and it's right next to the Louis Vuitton on Rodeo Drive. We are cheaters because those prices, so we're on the second level. So it's like a fourth the amount for that real estate. So that's our Beverly Hills store. This is our store in San Francisco. It's on Maiden Lane, right off Union Square. If any of you guys have been there, Maiden Lane has got all of the purse stores, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Marc Jacobs. They're all on this tiny little cute store, cute street, right off Union Square. And then this is our headquarters. It's in Carlsbad, San Diego, North County area. This is kind of the front lobby area. This is, I mean, it's 30,000 square feet of like luxury purses. It's Willy Wonka for luxury purses. It's, it's pretty crazy. Just again, to see the growth from up in the, in our bedroom, hearing the email notifications coming up in our room to now where it is today. But this is like the photography area. This is in our cage. We have like 10,000 purses in the cage. This is the most expensive purse we've ever sold. And I was going to let you guys guess to see if you could guess how much it cost. But I don't know if I can see the guesses come in. But this is, I'm just going to tell you, this is a $110,000 purse. And you're going to ask, that can't be one of your questions, why it costs that much, because that's another hour of conversation that I would love to talk to you about, actually, because I'm fascinated by it all still. But anyway, so that's where the business is today. We actually just signed a lease on our first store in New York City, and so we'll open there after the new year. So number 3, we know how to fail. And so it looks like, man, wow, that's gone really good for you, Sarah. You've had a really successful life. It's all been so easy. And, I started this in 1999, so I've been doing it a long time. And I've had a lot of really amazing experience in the skill of learning how to fail. And so, just the ability to pick up yourself after you fall and to learn from it and to learn not to do it again and to learn lessons from it, that's an amazing skill that we all have. And I've got lots of examples of this. The first one I thought about was when I always wanted to go to BYU. I was born, my dad went to BYU, and we were brought up like singing the Cougar Fight song and like wearing the BYU hoodies and like, coming to Provo, hanging out at the Cougarery, drinking chocolate milk from the creamery. This is my earliest childhood memories. I wanted to go to BYU. I didn't apply to any other school. I wanted to go to BYU Provo. So I was super excited. I turned in my application and I was convinced when my letter came back from BYU, from the admissions office, I'd been waiting for it. And so when it arrived, my mom actually drove it up to the school to my 7th period debate class. And I don't know how many of you guys have experience in debate from high school, but I was pretty much the only member of my debate team who wasn't like in the top 10 of our school. I mean, they were all going to the schools of their choices, like on scholarship. Anyway, and so I opened that letter and basically was humiliated as I read out my rejection letter in front of my class. So, I could have really let this derail me, but I really had my heart and my mind set on going to BYU. I really wanted to go. So I convinced my parents to let my best friend and my brother and I take the Greyhound bus to Utah to talk to a counselor. We had a few days off of school, and so I convinced them to let me take the Greyhound out to go talk to the counselor. And so we went up for our appointment. This is actually a photo my brother took of my best friend and I the day of that appointment. I made those pants in my fashion design class. I thought those were actually pants. They looked like a skirt. I thought I was going to start a huge trend that never never took off. But and so so I had this great conversation with the counselor. She was very, very nice and kind of gave me a plan for how to transfer in and all that. And then and when I left, I was shutting the door and I said, thank you so much for your help. You'll be seeing me. I'll be back. And when I got home from that bus ride from the Greyhound, there was a letter at our house, and it was an acceptance letter. And I just, there's lots of other ways I could have done that. I've told my own kids getting into BYU is hard. And so if you want to go to BYU, you can do lots of things. You can go to other schools and transfer in, and there's lots of different ways to approach it. But I feel like the process of my approach to that, to getting that rejection letter taught me more than other methods would have for me in how to respond to rejection. And I read an article, and it was talking about how Google first IPO'd and back when they were starting to go, just really started to take off, that they had like requirements to go to work at Google. You had to go to one of 5 schools like Stanford, Yale, Harvard, whatever, and you'd have a perfect 1600 on your SAT. And but then today, apparently something like 17% of Googlers in their computer science department have never been to college. Because what Google realized is when you get these kids in who have never failed at anything, I mean, to go to one of those schools and have a perfect score on these tests, you don't have much experience with failure. And so they realized that there's a bunch of hackers at home. There's a bunch of really smart kids that maybe think a little bit differently, approach things differently, and maybe have more experience with failure and learning to overcome it, and the lessons that come from that they maybe aren't giving a chance by being so so strict with their admission, with their hiring qualifications. Anyway, and so just that idea that there are things that we can learn in how we approach different areas that we fail. Name's Chris Belcher. When she was 7 months old, she was diagnosed with retinoblastoma. She had cancer in both of her eyes. And so they gave her radiation treatment, but because she was left with like very little vision, and she had scarring around her eyes, and so anyway, she kind of lost a lot of vision from that treatment, and ended up being that radiation that she got ended up causing her a more severe cancer that actually had her left her blind, totally blind. It was called, I can't remember what it's called, radiation-induced sarcoma. She developed these tumors in both of her eyes and went completely dark, completely blind. And so she said that when she was 4 years old, her doctor talked to her and said that she needed to be as still as a China doll. If she didn't do that, then her eyes were going to hemorrhage. And so she said for years she was just paralyzed with fear, was afraid to move, And so then she decided at one point, she said, I was tired of living like that. She's tired of the fear. And so she started to just live on her own terms. In 8th and 10th grade, she tried out for and made the cheerleading teams. In 11th grade, she was a pom-pom girl, and as a senior, she became the school mascot. She was a warrior princess for the Armio Indians. She started speaking at firesides. She's written several books. I mean, she's totally blind, and she's written books. I've always wanted to write a book. Got no excuses and no books. Anyway, but she's amazing. She speaks at firesides. She's on the Time Out for Women circuit. I've actually lived in 2 wards in Northern California and in Southern California where one of her brothers lives. Her brothers are both like super personable, handsome. They're both dentists. They're successful. They have these wonderful lives. And she could have been bitter about her lot in life and quiet and maybe even reclusive because of her blindness. But she chose a different path. She chose one that lifts everyone around her and inspires other people to believe that they can handle anything that life throws at them. this woman right here, her name's Allie Webb. Some of you may know who she is. Um, she she grew up and, you know, didn't really know what she wanted to do with her life. She didn't go to college. Her brothers went to college, went to graduate school, were super successful, and she always kind of felt like the dummy of the family. And she ended up going to hair school, and she moved to New York, and she wanted to work at this really successful salon, so she worked there, and she never could get off the sweeping and the blow drying to actually doing the cut and color and all that. She never really like graduated at that point, but she ended up meeting her husband and getting married, and they had kids, and she stopped working, and you know, but she used to love doing hair, and so she loved to straighten hair. She loved to blow dry, do blowouts and all that, and so she started doing blowouts for friends. She always had, but she started charging money for it. She started what was called it's called Straight at Home, I think, and she would drive to different people's houses and straighten their hair, and she charged them money for it. Anyway, she ended up she was doing so well with this. Brother quit his job, and they all started working on developing this company, and that company is now Drybar. They have like 70 something locations, you know, $100 million in revenue, and all, you know, from this person who just never really knew what she was going to do with her life. She just took what she found, what she enjoyed, and kept going with it. But I love hearing the stories of different people and how they take whatever life throws at them and make the best of it, and especially making something big and beautiful and things that you can share. So, you know, finally, for some of us, I get emotional when I think about the experience that I had on my mission and the things that taught me about how to respond to failure, how to respond to being told no. That experience has forever impacted my life, and it will. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, I didn't learn a language. I didn't sleep in a hammock or, you know, eat anything really weird, but just a lot of casseroles. But I learned so many lessons on my mission that have impacted my life ever since then, and especially those about learning how to respond to fear, to failure and rejection. This is my daughter Zoe, and I just love this example. She is such a little fireball, but here she is like rock climbing with her broken arm. Probably not a good idea, but you know, that's her attitude in life. Number 4, we know what to prioritize. And so, and this is a big one I think that lots of you had questions about, and so I wanted to spend some time talking about this and why I think you already know the answer to these questions intuitively. I'm a really big believer that I'm like really sorry. I can't see myself, so I think I've got like a really harsh light right now. But anyway, I'm a big believer that that you can have it all, maybe not at the same time, but that you can accomplish everything you want in this life, you know, almost without exception. And when I say that, I think that men really understand this, and they get it. They have goals in their lives, like my husband's got goals in his life. He believes he can accomplish them, and he sets out and he accomplishes those goals. But women, sometimes we set goals in our life, and then because of the value and priority we place on our family, and especially our children, we eliminate some of those goals because they don't seem to fit. And I think sometimes, you know, you've got to prioritize, and sometimes what your goal is, if you want to, you know, be a professional skydiver, I don't know. There's things that maybe, you know, that maybe that would not work. But most of the time, I think it's actually sad and wrong. I think it has lasting consequences. I've never heard a woman say, "I wish I hadn't gone to law school. Why did I do that?" Or, "I wish I hadn't gone on a mission." Or why did I take all the time to write that book? I mean, why did I do that? Or why did I go over to India and start this thing helping the lepers? Those things all took time. Those things all take effort and prioritization. But more often I hear women say, you know, I always really wanted to be a nurse. or I really wish I would have finished my degree. And I'm not saying this because I believe that a gospel and family-centered priority are out of whack. On the contrary, I believe that the gospel and our families are our primary responsibility. But I do not believe that a gospel and family-centered life excludes. We know that real happiness, basically just true peace and contentment, come as we focus on what's most important first. And we know what's most important. We all know that in our hearts. But the gospel and family are not inconsistent with contributions that we can make in society around us. President Hinckley said, strong and able women today fill responsible posts in industry, government, education, and other professions. The whole world looks at respect to Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, a woman of great demonstrated ability and great capacity in carrying forward a program designed to strengthen her nation and its people. We were all impressed with Golda Meir of Israel. It's wonderful to witness this great renaissance, and I think it will continue to grow for the blessing of people everywhere. And then he said this: the church has been in the forefront of training the daughters of Zion and in giving them responsibility. We believe and have taught consistently from the earliest days of the church that a woman's greatest mission in life is an honorable and happy marriage with the rearing of an honorable and happy family. That means mothering and nurturing in a very real and personal way that is demanding of both time and energy. And this is where it gets interesting. But this is not inconsistent with other activities. There are tremendous responsibilities for women in the church as well as in the community, consistent with and in total harmony with marriage, motherhood, and the rearing of good and able children. It's important, therefore, that girls in the church have opportunity for and motivation to move forward in programs designed to improve their skills, to enhance their estimation of their own self-worth, and increase their faith. The good you can do, the contributions you can make, can be consistent with and in harmony with marriage, motherhood, and the rearing of good and able children. How you do that will be yours to figure out, and it's different for everybody, and that's okay. When I started law school, I actually thought that I was going to be fine getting nannies and doing whatever I could to be able to work. But I think a mixture of my LDS upbringing and my control freak, like natural man tendencies prevented me from being okay with that. So I found a way to fulfill my dreams with my kids at my side. I still have like PTSD over like the thought of me with like a baby strapped on my belly and like a baby in each hand, and I'm kind of pushing a stroller that's filled with priority mail boxes as I'm trying to beat the closing of the post office at 5 p.m. You know, that but I slowly added employees, and they would work from the office so that I could work from home, and that worked for me. But your story will be different. I really love a story that super left political pundit James Carville told. I can tell I'm like in a really bad light, but I can't. Rick's am I like in a really bad shadow here? I'm trying to move over, so I can't see myself. Anyway, he told this story about how James Carville's told a story that Newt Gingrich told all the time. So I love that it's like the liberal and the conservative telling each other stories. But anyway, so Newt Gingrich tells a story about how a lion is totally capable of capturing and killing a field mouse, and but it turns out that the energy required to the lion would expend in chasing the field mouse exceeds the caloric content of the mouse, and so it was like slowly starved to death by doing that. So a lion can't live on field mouse, a diet of field mouse. A lion needs antelope. Antelope are big animals. They take more speed and they take more agility and strength to capture and kill. But once killed, they can provide a feast for the lion and for her pride. A lion can live a long and a happy life on antelope. So this distinction is important. Like, what are we doing with our time? Chasing field mice. In the short term, that could be rewarding. I mean, I actually love to chase field mice. I'm very distracted by little things, and I really have to focus myself. But in the long run, you know, at the end of the day, I think that's the thing we have to ask ourselves: what are we chasing today? What are we using our time doing? And so, part of that is prioritizing and having the ability to say no. You know, I'm sure you've heard this before, but just the idea that there's lots of things that we can be doing with our time. There's things that are really good, the better or the best things to be doing. And so we have to have that skill to be able to say no to the field mice and to be, you know, to be focused on the hunting of the antelope. The story is particularly powerful to me because of what we know about lions in particular. The lions who hunt. Who are the lions that hunt? The lions in the pride that do the hunting are the females. We know how to prioritize, and to do that, we keep Heavenly Father in that discussion. Ezra Taft Benson said, "Men and women who turn their lives over to God will discover that He can make a lot more out of their lives than they can. He will deepen their joys, expand their vision, quicken their minds, strengthen their muscles, lift their spirits, multiply their blessings, increase their opportunities, comfort their souls, raise up friends, and pour out peace." And so I really like that idea that as we turn our lives and our plans over to God, that He has so much more in store for us than we can even imagine. He knows what we can handle. He knows what we can accomplish with His help, and He is willing and able and ready to give us that help. Number 5, we know how to lead. Women in the church, starting at 12 years old, have an opportunity to begin serving in presidencies, on councils, and on boards. I know of nowhere else in the world where this happens at such a young age. We gain access to leadership opportunities and training at these very early ages. This information is so impactful. I think especially at those ages it's impactful. We develop skills and attributes that will bless us in our lives and those around us as we're able to do that. This is my daughter in Panama. I just wanted to see her picture. But anyway, she's, you know, she had the opportunity to serve as a sister training leader. Like, I didn't have that when I was in a mission. They're having leadership opportunities from a young age and continuing to grow and develop these skills. This is such a benefit to us. In doing so, when you have those opportunities, you learn to delegate. Sometimes that's hard. But we're being trained on, and we have experience of delegating responsibility as like 12-year-olds. We learn to collaborate. We're serving not only in presidencies, but on stake youth committees, stake young women's camp presidencies, attending, you know, like Bishop Youth Council meetings. From a very young age, we develop these. We have this ability, and we've got this training for years, you know, helping us to learn these skills. We learn quickly the adage and the truth behind the adage, many hands make light work. We learn that when we want to accomplish something, the result is better, and the work is done quicker and more effectively. President Spencer W. Kimball prophesied, "My dear sisters," and you heard Sister Eubank quoted this in the women's conference, the women's session of General Conference last General Conference. "My dear sisters, may I suggest to you something that has not been said before, or at least quite in this way. Much of the major growth that is coming to the church in the last days will come because of the good women of the church will be drawn to the church in large numbers. This will happen to the degree that the women of the church reflect righteousness and articulateness, distinct and different and happy ways from the women of the world." And so, you know, just recognizing the fact that, you know, this is something that it's been prophesied that we're going to do, that we're going to step out, we're going to get out in our communities and have these opportunities to lead and to step forward. And I think one of those reasons why, I can't even remember why I put that picture in there. I just want to see my girls. Those are my other girls. Is that we know how to organize. You know, as Elder Boyd K. Packer said, we need women who are organized. and who can organize. We need women with executive ability who can plan and direct and administer, women who can teach, women who can speak out. And I know we joke in the church a lot about, you'll hear people say, oh, you know, women run the church. You hear that joke a lot. But I think it's so funny because I'll talk to women and they'll say, oh, I heard, you know, I was talking to someone, she said, oh, I was thinking of running for the school board, but that would take me, you know, man, you were just released as the Relief Society president a couple months ago. You were spending like probably, that's like a part to full-time job away from the kids. You just weren't being paid for it. And I think a lot of times we manage, you know, when you get a big calling like that, you just manage, you make do. And we're able to do that because we do, we organize. That's something else we're taught it from a young age. We're taught in these presidencies, on these boards, how to plan activities and how to plan service opportunities. Most people don't have that. You'll talk to other adults who just don't have that experience. And even like my mom, she joined the church when she was 25, but she never went to college and she hasn't had a traditional job, you know, that she's paid for outside of the house. But she has learned all of these skills and has developed all these talents based on this experience that she's had from church. We're taught from the scriptures that we should be anxiously engaged in a good cause. And we're also taught that we should organize ourselves, prepare every needful thing. And I think we internalize those things. And I'm grateful for again, like I said, I think that there's some natural, like I talked about as women, I think there's natural attributes that we have that to lead us to entrepreneurial mindsets. And I really think that the church does a lot to emphasize this and to encourage it. And I hope I answered a lot of your questions in my presentation, but I want to be able to, I think Rixa was going to help me to answer some of your more specific questions because there are so many good ones. Rixa, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. I know a lot of the questions were, you know, people wondered how do they come up with an idea, or what have you seen about women entrepreneurs, you know, how do they come up with an idea, or if they have one, where do they start? You know, that was a big question, I think, with a lot of them.
Yeah, and so I tried, and that's why I tried to emphasize this, just as several examples in the presentation about different people who had different skills. Like, you know, Allie Webb, she could blow dry hair. I mean, like, who would have thought that that was a skill that you'd be able to turn into this, like, I don't even know what skill was that she could do a good blowout. I would never have guessed that would be something that you could turn into something that's like a marketable skill. And so, you know, and so I think a lot of times it's like, what are you good at? What's a need? Like I said, a need that needs to be filled, that you look around and maybe it's just in your community. Maybe it's something based on something that's around you that you're able to have access to. When my sister and brother-in-law, they were at BYU Hawaii, I was selling stuff on eBay, and they were like, we're in Hawaii, and we realized there's actually a really big, like, shirts, Hawaiian shirts. And so they would, like, go to all of the consignment shops and thrift stores and buy these vintage Aloha shirts, and that's how they paid their entire life when they were at BYU Hawaii. That was their jobs. They would go to these stores and they'd sell the stuff on eBay. They found something that was available in their local area. That's not something none of us are from Hawaii, but they saw that there, and they saw that that was a need online to someone to kind of get that together, and they did that. So I think a lot of times it's just keeping that, like, natural ability that we have as women of really just, like, seeing what's a need that, you know, what's a lot of these LDS entrepreneurial ventures we talked about, you see that a lot of times, like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to find a prom dress and it's impossible. I mean, this is true. Someone start this company. Because, like, you know, my daughter's looking for you know, modest dresses. Lots of people start companies, you know, they'll find something that's hard to shop for or something that they're having difficulty with that they think they could solve, and that's what they'll go that way.
I think other questions then too came from, you know, next step is, so you had an idea, you started selling on eBay, you started doing things, but how did you get the word out? What, I mean, did you just find people to help you with marketing? Did you?
No, I've never, we actually still, I still do I still do all our own social media. Like we don't have a marketer still. I mean, that's something that's amazing nowadays with social media. That's totally free, you know, and just kind of thinking creatively. You know, I think that one of the things that nowadays that's so amazing is there's all of these platforms, so that if you, you know, if you've got, you know, I actually met a woman recently. You can find her on Etsy. She crochets an American flag Afghan. That is just crazy. It's awesome. It's the American flag crocheted, and it's got like gold tassels on the outside, and it's incredible. She's really talented. But back in the day, she was hauling those things to like craft fairs and stuff, and like it's just hard to find an audience. But now there's all these platforms like Etsy, that does a lot of the marketing for you. So if you have a home crafted something, you can sell it on Etsy. If you write a book, they will publish it for you and put it up on Amazon. You don't ever have to do anything. I mean, they've got all these tools available. If you have other stuff, you can, you know, still use eBay or some of these. There's a bunch of now of other like reselling platforms, but there's lots of places online where you can test out things and allow them to do some of the marketing for you. Companies like Etsy and eBay, they're all spending a lot of money on Google AdWords, which is basically marketing your product for you as people are looking for, you know, military gifts for when like I'm in the military, and when you're moving from rank to rank and you're advancing, people look for gifts at that time, or you're retiring. And this woman has found a lot of success in selling those Afghans to people in that situation. She uses those keywords. She puts it on Etsy. Etsy puts out Google AdWords for it, and so there's just a lot of really, I think with the internet now, as long as you've got something unique, there's a lot of opportunity there for you to be able to get the word out, just trying to you know, find a good platform for you and a way to talk about what you're doing that is unique. It's difficult if you're trying to do something that everybody else is doing and you're doing it on the internet. That's difficult. Then it's easier to do, I think, in a local market. We still do all of our own. We still do all of our own marketing, and we don't do any traditional advertising. We use social media to bring awareness to what we do, but it's grown organically as people have bought from Fashionphile and found it to work for them and had good experiences. They tell their friends, and it's grown that way. We try to use our own customers to grow the business as well. You know, if you have a positive experience, like I said, we buy people bags, and we try to buy bags from them and try to use our own. We pay them to tell their friends, and so there's things like that you can do.
Wow, I think that really says a lot, because I think what stops a lot of people from pursuing an idea is like, well, how am I going to tell anybody? How am I going to get the word out? And this says, hey, it's a lot easier than you think in today's world.
There's another. It's called Help a Reporter Out, HARO, H-A-R-O. And honestly, like if you find a story about Fashionphile that's like in Forbes or in like Entrepreneur Magazine or in like Washington Post, a lot of that that wasn't PR that helped us to do that. There's a website called HARO, and they organize all of these journalists who are trying to write stories. And every day I get an email in my mailbox that says, hey, if you've got an experience with trying to, you know, trying to get the word out about your business in ways that are free, give me 3 top tips or whatever. it's all these journalists asking for contributions for their stories. And so I pick through it, and sometimes I'll go 5 days and there's not a single response. And other times I'll find something that relates to Fashionphile and I'll respond to it. And we've gotten lots of stories in lots of legitimate news, platforms that way.
Well, that's amazing. 2 last questions before we get done here. One of the things that people are always concerned about is how do you balance your life then between this business you've created, which obviously must take a lot of time, and making sure that you were always giving enough time to your family too. Do you have maybe 2 hints of things that work for you to make that balance and still give your family the time you wanted?
Yeah. Well, there are a few things. Number one, like I said, now my life is totally different because my youngest child is 12 and my kids are gone all day long until 4 o'clock. And so this is a totally different stage in my life than back in the early days when I had, little ankle biters like helping me along the way. And for me, like, work was almost like my hobby, where there's time. What I found when I was, especially when my kids were young, I found there is time to do stuff that I want to do. I was always able to do things I want to do. There's not time to do things that and so it means prioritizing. It means that maybe I didn't go on as many girls' lunches. I just didn't. I've actually not gone on any girls' trips. Like, it's not part of my life. There's certain ways that I've had to sacrifice and said, if I'm going to do this and it's going to require me to spend a lot of my time, my family, the time that my kids are napping or whatever, I can't be reading, books that aren't helping the business, or I can't watch TV or whatever. I eliminate a lot of things that I maybe did before and just say that's just not part of my life now because I've got these other things that are filling my life. And so, I found that in my life, if even I'm super, super busy, but like, if I want to read the scriptures, I can fit that in. If I want to exercise, I can fit it in. It's just that I can't do other things that normally are a time suck. Things like checking out a lot of, social media that's not important, or, like I said, a lot of maybe more social things. My social has to be more with just my family, or, other sacrifices you make. You're gonna have to get that time from somewhere. And so, for me, it's just a matter of going, okay, this is the time I've got in the day. And when my kids were little, I'm a night owl, and so, gosh, I had 5 hours after my kids went to bed, maybe 4, but after my kids go to bed at 8 o'clock, I could crank it all out. And I've always been an early bird, and so, I get stuff done then. When my kids were younger, I wouldn't sit around all day long and do work, but I would definitely not feel bad if my kids are sitting next to me coloring and I'm doing some work on the computer. I just wouldn't feel bad about that. Again, like, I remember I thought about it like my pioneer ancestors who were hand in hand with their kids on the fields. So it's just it's just different. Everybody's, I had professors at BYU who, were working full time and they've got kids and they were able to work that out just with their own family dynamic. I think everybody's family dynamic is different, and like I said, I believe you can do it all. I think you can accomplish all the things you want to in your life, but sometimes there is an order to it, and it can't all happen at the same time. And definitely right now I've got a lot more freedom because my kids are gone all day long. So I never went into the office when they were little, and I do now. So
I think that's a great way to end right there too, is that we can accomplish whatever we want to, and there's an order to it, but it may not be. That order may change, or we'll have to adjust it as we go along. I also took away the importance of knowing that we have a lot more abilities than maybe we believe we do to do business, to start things, to follow dreams and reach goals. So I really appreciate all that you've told us today, Sarah. Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun hearing your story and getting your ideas. For everyone listening, we do record these. I'm going to post the the recording and send you all out a link. I will also get the slides from Sarah, and we can post those as well, so you can look at those points again. And again, thank you all for being part of this and watching these webinars, and watch for the announcement on the next one. Thank you so much. Appreciate it all. Okay, bye-bye.